Hey Mallory, how are ya?
I'm doing great, Karen. How are you today?
All right, I'm good, thank you. Looks like we've got some people joining here.
Looks like a really great group. I'm seeing some familiar faces, some new faces. So excited to have y'all participate today.
We did just have one person leave, which, won't take it personally. 1 minute in,
Yikes.
but we'll give it just one more minute. I want to start on time here, but want to give people the little extra 2 minute buffer just in case they're running behind. You can see my screen all right, Mallory?
I can. Why don't, if folks will chat us in, let make sure you're giving us a thumbs up that you can hear us okay, see everything okay.
You can do a little high five, hand raise.
High five hand raise. I'm looking, I didn't realize in the webinars you don't have the emoji reactions, which was one of my new favorite
Oh,
Zoom features. Throw up a little heart, a little thumbs up.
there we go. Okay, Steven says we've got a thumbs up, so thank you. All right, cool. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Mallory, you can confirm you see my slides changing here.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. Well, hello again to everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our webinar on how to tackle 2021 goals with Goodshuffle Pro. My name is Karen Gordon. I'm the VP of Growth here at Goodshuffle, and I have my colleague Mallory Mullen joining me today. And a fun fact for those who don't know, we both have backgrounds in the events industry. So you combine that with the fact that we get the distinct pleasure of talking to event professionals every single day. We are well aware of the joys and the challenges, and obviously today's focus, which is the goals for what folks are telling us they want to do in 2021.
Yeah, we're going to touch on five main themes here, and we're really focusing mostly today on how to support your goals. Today is less about diving into a deep dive into features with Goodshuffle Pro, and we'll of course talk through the value that Goodshuffle Pro brings to the table in accomplishing these goals here. I want to point out too that these examples are really timely. Karen and I have both spent a lot of time talking with users and prospects this year. And being in the events industry, we understand we're all kind of navigating some unknown still. Yet it seems that most people are really eager to jump into 21, figure out the tools that they need to succeed, and be prepared for what's to come. Whether that's responding to the client's shifting needs and demands, right? The ability to cater to the 24/7 shopper now, which Karen's going to take a deeper dive into, and taking a moment to prep and scale your business, right? There are few windows of opportunities that exist like this. And I am a passionate organizer. For those of you who don't think that I've taken some extra available Saturdays to get my closets organized, get things off my own honey-do list, now is the time to take advantage of those opportunities. I don't want to come to, the close of our current situation and say, oh gosh, I should have taken the opportunity to do this or that. We want to help you get those items checked off your to-do list. Ultimately, we know there are things that are out of our control, but what we want to focus on today is the tools that do exist to help you manage that event life chaos. Karen's going to start off with diving into our first step in the process, right? How to generate more leads.
Right. An obvious goal for everyone is, of course, getting more leads. If you want to scale, you have to continuously be opening up that top of funnel. And to do this, we really believe that your website should be your primary focus. More and more business is being done online. That was already true for many years past, but particularly now, as people are getting more and more used to everything that we do online, that is only becoming more of a focus. And there's a lot to tackle in improving a website. That's its own series of webinars. And in fact, we have done several series of webinars on this. So we will make sure when we email people at the end of this webinar, links to some of those webinars we've done, some blog posts, lots of other resources, since we can't dive into everything you can do today. But I do want to start with just why this is so important. I like to kind of think of it as your 24/7 shop. So I don't know how this might be a little bit narrow in terms of our folks today, if everyone's seen this specific episode of Sex and the City. But the episode, she keeps trying to go to the dry cleaners to get her dress, and it's sort of just this running joke that the dry cleaners is always closed, which I think is relatable regardless if you're a Carrie Bradshaw fan like myself. I do find that the dry cleaners was one where, when I find myself leaving the office and it was never open. And one of the great things about a website is it really does allow you to shop at any time. And you need to think about when you're doing browsing, can anyone raise their hand here if they ever watch their phone while watching TV, if they're ever browsing and scrolling while they have another screen open? Yep. Okay, couple of hands. What about people who do the late night insomnia move of, well, now I'm going to do my Christmas shopping because I can't sleep, so I might as well, or things like that? Anyone? Raise hands.
Those Black Friday sales. I was like...
I finally got a Secret Santa gift just the other night because I couldn't sleep. So that's what people are doing. And yet there's, I think, sometimes a little bit of this denial of that's really where you're going to get your leads is from that. So if you're going to have this 24/7 shop, and I hope most people on this call at least have a website, you need to be thinking about, well, if I had a shop, who would I want in the shop? Probably a salesperson. And if you have a salesperson, they need to be telling what your unique value proposition is. If you're not familiar with what a unique value proposition is, something I talk about a lot, we can again send some additional materials on this, but you really need to be showcasing what you do, not just well, but uniquely well. So whether that is your customer service, if that's really just why people are booking you because you have just the top of the line customer service, whether it's because you provide the full scale experience for events from, top to bottom, all the planning, all the florals. For many of you, it's probably your inventory. That's a big part of what you're showcasing. And yet there are people who don't have their newest, coolest inventory on their site. And of course, our website wish list is one of the things that really helps with that, because the minute you get a sparkling new piece of inventory, you add it in your system and it's instantly showing online. One of the hot tips I'm also going to give in terms of showcasing your inventory is that you can see that I removed the background here and the shoes here to showcase this inventory. I did that with truly a matter of a couple clicks in Canva. For people not familiar, Canva offers a free service. To have that tool, you have to have the Canva Pro, but I'm pretty sure that it's, I don't want to say an exact amount, but it's pretty low cost. I think it's a few bucks a month. And they actually, for those who use that Rakuten, the cashback plugin, which I just discovered, I think they're doing 40% off right now. So no affiliation with Canva, but little shout out to how easy that is. You do not need Photoshop. It is really easy to do. So as you're getting your website in shape and you're making sure you're showing off your UVP, you also need to remember that people who are shopping do not have your amazing creative vision. I think that anyone who's in the events industry, whether you're the highly creative type or you're a little bit more on the logistics side, I think anyone who's been working, even if you're working like, hey, I do more of the gear and I drop it off, you have seen enough events that you are understandably more creative than most people shopping. And you need to remember that. So you need to be really doing some storytelling. You really need to feed people a vision, leading the witness, as I called it here. So one of the things that you can do is build things like collections. You can see I took a screenshot of one of our clients, Your Butler's Pantry. They did a beautiful job on their website. I love showing it off, where they actually did tabletop settings, and then they have all of the individual components that you would need to build that specific setting. So that's the kind of thing you really need to do. You can always say, we'll customize for you. This doesn't remove customizing per client, but these types of visualizations are what your client needs to see because they just don't have your creative vision. Even for things like event types. So to say, these are popular things for a corporate event, or these are popular things for, a quinceañera. If you're going and shopping and it's your first time doing so for one of these events, you might just not know. And this is how trends start on Pinterest, by the way. People are very easily led. It's, they're coming and they're seeing it and you're selling it to them and then they're going to want it. So, make sure you do that storytelling. Another way to do it is via your actual events you've done. Don't just throw up one or two pictures of a great job you've done. Actually highlight the inventory that was there so that people understand, like, oh yeah, that cool blue lighting came from Uplights. They're not going to know that. And then, of course, once they get so excited to reach out to you, you need to make it easy for them to do so. So the standard practice is no more than 3 input forms or input fields on your form. So if you have a contact us where you ask how many people are coming to the event, every single detail of the event, you are actually turning people off. Believe me, we have this temptation as well. We want to know when someone's signing up for a demo of our software, hey, which part of the industry are you in? So that Mallory could then customize what she shows them. Of course, we want to know that. We want to know how big their staff is. We want to know if we should be showcasing our QuickBooks Online integration or just not talk about that. But if we asked all those things, no one would sign up for a demo, because this is just proven time and time again that you need to make it really, really easy. You don't want it to feel like a test. I'm sure some people look at this photo and immediately feel a sense of anxiety just looking at this level, this Scantron.
Karen, I have to tell you, if you don't mind me jumping in,
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody this week and they were walking me through their website form. They had 5 pages worth of questions that they were asking the customers, and it was great questions, right? Like being able to customize and tweak, and when do we need to drop off, is there a buffer time to flip the room, all these things. But I was like, is this actually keeping you from having to follow up with the client? Like, do clients actually fill this out right 100% of the time? Like, are you able to really just like turn something around and go? And he thought for a minute and he was like, well, no. And I was like, okay. So my next question is, how many folks do you think this is turning off by having so many questions? And I think that is, something to think about with these web forms is, how can you make it, fast and easy? This is opening the door. It's not meant to completely automate and take every single question out of your follow-up with the client.
Right. I mean, this whole part is about getting more leads, right? It's not about removing any kind of contact. The whole point is to try and open up the top of funnel so that you can get more business. And so you don't want to be turning people off in exactly what it's supposed to be bringing in all of these new folks. So that's great. I'm glad. I would be curious to hear how he ends up adjusting. Hopefully,
yeah, he's gonna install our website wishlist integration, so he's gonna be in good shape by next week.
Good. Well, I'll leave us a scary thought on the getting more leads on your website. 75% of people will judge your credibility on your website design, and I wanted to share that stat because credibility is so important. We know that there's a big difference, especially with just sort of the people who really have event industry experience, people who really have, a business that knows what they're doing. And that credibility is mostly being judged. It's not necessarily on things like your certificate of insurance and all the other things that you should have and need to have. But honestly, people are making a snap judgment just from your website. So I put in our little link here. I'll, of course, email it out as well about our website wish list and how it can help with a lot of the getting more leads and creating credibility. But I'll turn it over to Mallory now to talk about goal number 2.
Yeah, of course, with all of these new leads, that's just the first step. We've got to convert those leads into cash. And I'm going to talk through, 3 themes here, right? Going to be fast and furious to close these themes, going to make it easy, breezy, and beautiful. And then, of course, it wasn't me, which I'll explain here in a minute. The first is fast and furious, right? Following up with your clients is really important, and getting to them quickly while they've got your attention is also super important. So within Goodshuffle Pro, we've got a nice 1-2 punch here, right? The flow of submitting a website wish list can happen at any time, and mentally your clients are going to be able to check that off their to-do list, which is great. We're taking them immediately to the next step, which is alerting you right away. And we've got some options here. Karen is much more of a like, my email is my to-do list. I am much more of like, give me a good old dashboard and like tell me what information is there. And so whether you want to see those email notifications come in or you're a dashboard person like me, you'll be able to see those wish list submissions in real time so that you can get back to the client very quickly. We've got options for everyone, so depending on your preference, nothing here is going to fall through the cracks. And then, of course, be able to nurture your leads, right? We've got tools within Goodshuffle Pro to help you follow up with clients as they need to, right? Not all of your VIP corporate clients want to hear from you, every single week when their event is 6 months away, but your high touch brides may need a little bit more love to take the next step. So you'll see a screenshot down below in the bottom left-hand corner of a dashboard that you can set up that is showing me, hey, who do I need to follow up with first? Is that sorting it by the last message sent, or do I want to sort this by the quote totals, right? Do I want to prioritize my bigger contracts? It's super easy to sort and filter as you need it. Of course, this is all great. The next step in the process is getting that quote out to the client. We want to make it easy, breezy, beautiful, and the flow with our client experience is bar none. I mean, 50% of the contracts sent through Goodshuffle are signed and deposit paid within 5 minutes of being sent. That's really important to set up a good customer experience. Imagine if I were your client and I were going to your website now, but to Karen's point, I'm a midnight browser. So I'm going in at night when you're closed. It's after hours, so I can't ask you questions right away. I can't call you on the phone. When and if I remember to call you tomorrow morning, it takes you a couple days to get me a quote back. Then I got the quote, you've got to send me a separate payment link. And oh my gosh, this process that in Goodshuffle Pro takes all of 5 minutes has suddenly taken us like a couple days. And so we want to create this seamless experience for your clients. Imagine your takeout experiences as well. I'm sure everyone has some, mom and pop restaurants that they're supporting right now that they love and want to support. But in a pinch, when I am needing something, I forgot to, make dinner for the family, I'm leaning on my DoorDashes, my Uber Eats, because I know with the click of a few buttons, I can get that food to me. And that's the same kind of philosophy about this client experience as well. And then the next phase is the follow-up, the closing. There are certain moments that you're going to want to distance yourself, right? It wasn't me. We want you to leave the opportunity to be the good guy, be the one that can be the client's cheerleader, do the fun and creative stuff. And that's why we've built this all-in-one system so that your client can go through the entire flow of being able to review, sign, and pay. Of course, we'll send out automated payment reminders, right? One of the things that I hear always as I'm talking with either our users or prospects, it's, oh, I love working with our clients, but I don't want to chase them down for money. And so with our automated payment reminders, seeing a dramatic reduction in accounts receivable because you're relying on the technology to kind of poke the client and nudge them along. The contract change log is fantastic for those moments where the client changes their mind, right? I tell a story of one of our customers who was delivering, 500 chairs for this gala back in January. And the planner comes up to him and is like, oh my gosh, Corey, I needed 750 chairs. What are you doing? And he, had that moment of panic, was able to go back into the contract change log and see, okay, when did we update this count? And then immediately after the client approving that change. So it wasn't this he said, she said, right? Corey ran back to the warehouse, got the additional chairs, saved the day, of course, but it didn't become the awkward, like, who's paying for this mistake question. And then, of course, the communication tracking, right? The back and forth with the client. I very openly joke all the time that when I was on the planning side of things, I was terrible at organizing my inbox. I mean, I was sometimes working with the same client on several different projects at once. And so being able to have that in a system like Goodshuffle Pro would be so helpful, because Goodshuffle will automatically tag the appropriate conversation into the project in Goodshuffle Pro. So that way all my communication with the client is sorted in one place. And if I know I need to talk to Olivia about this particular event happening in March, I can just hop into that event there, and all of my back and forth will be there with her. There's no need to argue about who said what last, whether that's on the client side or on the team side. You'll notice in that screenshot that we have on the slide there, there's also a team chat. So whether that's, notifying your team of, hey, it's going to rain tomorrow, don't forget a rain jacket, or hey, I updated this on the pull sheet, but I wanted to bring to your attention that we've added 250 chairs. There's always that nice log that's updated instantaneously, right? Benefit to digital over paper there is nothing is ever outdated.
Before I move to the next slide, I want to do a little check to see if everyone's awake. Can anyone spot the mistake on the slide? Anyone? Anyone notice something funny about the slide? You can chat it in. You can call us out. There's screenshots of the contract change log, communication tracking, but the billing reminders, you don't have a screenshot of our billing reminder. It's the stock image. It blended in so well. I must have forgotten to drop that in there. So, you know, you notice something new live all the time. Speaking of our chat and our Q&A, if you have any questions along the way, if you are a current user and you aren't sure how something we're showing is done, feel free to chat us and we'll follow up with you after. If you are somebody who's not using Goodshuffle Pro and you have any questions about what we're talking about, again, feel free to send us the Q&A. We'll go through all those questions at the end. But going on to our third goal for the new year, maximizing your inventory. I got to tell you, I just the other day on Sunday actually was talking to someone who was telling me that they booked a corporate gig where the corporation is paying for all of the stuff that they're doing for this rental. So they were really excited because, you know, as I said, this corporation is paying for all this inventory and now they can only profit off of it as they continue to rent it out, which is really great. That's a wonderful situation to be in. But it's only really going to work if you actually continue to rent those things out. If you continue to market them and you continue to actually get success in renting them out. Because the scary truth is that unused inventory costs you money. It is not just sitting there. It is actually taking money from you. Way to think about it is if you were a landlord, you wouldn't let a tenant just squat without paying rent, right? You would of course charge them for rent. So are you charging rent from your inventory that is sitting in your warehouse? Something tells me your warehouse is not free. You know, one of the other ways that it's costing you is that you're forgetting to sell it. So out of sight, out of mind. If you forget that you have something, you're probably more likely selling and pitching the same inventory over and over again. And what does that cause? That means that you get double bookings because I keep suggesting the same sofa seat to the same, you know, to people over and over, in which case you either have a disappointed client or you end up subrenting something out. And as we all know, subrentals have slimmer margins.
Well, and not only that, Karen, think about like if you're continuing to use the same items over and over again, you're going to have to replace those items sooner, right? Utilize that inventory that may be tucked back into the warehouse. I know everyone's trying to keep an eye on those expenses. So the last thing we want right now is to be hit with like this huge replacement cost.
100%. Yeah. If you keep renting the same thing out over and over, I mean, it's also going to be a little bit tired in terms of how it looks. So you want to be spreading out the love. You want to make sure that everything in your inventory that you've already paid for is continuing to pay for itself and continuing to be used. So how are some of the ways that you can make sure you're doing that? Well, a couple of things you can do with Goodshuffle Pro is one, you can use tags for things. And some folks might be familiar with tags as one of the things we use for displaying things on your wish list, but they can also be a great way for you to remember what you have. So for example, let's say I got an ice cream sundae cutout, a very specific thing for an ice cream sundae shop opening. Well, if I could just, when I add that to my inventory, quickly take 2 minutes to think, what are situations I might use this in? And I tagged, I don't know, some sort of like 1950s theme or a school play or school dance or grease lightning or, you know, anything like that. Then next time I have a theme or I have somebody who comes in is doing a bat mitzvah and she wants it to feel like an old school diner, you know, by typing in some of those words, it's going to come back up rather than it just kind of being buried away and you forget that you even have it. Similarly, you can use filters. So I've noticed that some of our clients don't even realize that you don't just have to search. Searching, of course, I think is one of the fastest things, so people are just doing that. But when you go to add a product to something, let's pretend I'm doing some package and I know I want to have some sort of blue sofa. Well, we all get into the habit of saying, oh, right, the Belmont sofa over and over again. And as we just said, that's going to hurt that inventory and it's going to increase the chances that you're double booking because you're saying the same one. So if you sort by an attribute, such as blue sofa, you can actually see all of them and you might be reminded of something you forgot you had. or something that's more of a pattern blue, and you know that this client won't mind that it's other colors as well. And then we can talk about alternates, Mallory's fave, which is, you can easily put in Goodshuffle Pro an alternate for something, and in the little hover over next to that item, it'll show you that there's an alternate, and then you'll see that it'll display here. In this case, it's telling me, hey, do you want to swap that out for this other pillow? It even knows, do you want to do 2 of them with the other pillow? Shows how much it is. It'll show red if it's unavailable. So it's a great opportunity to swap it, of course, if there's a conflict, but even if there's not, if you're just finding yourself gravitating towards something and you stop and think, oh, is there another one? Because I know this one's popular. I know this will sell to anyone. This is not a VIP client, so I want to find my less popular pillow. An alternate is a great way to do that so that you can really, again, spread out the love, make sure that all of these inventory items are getting used and that wear and tear is being distributed.
Yeah, I love that. Alternates are my favorite feature this year, I think. Second only to smiling. Smiling is my favorite. Any elf fans out there? And of course, staying organized. As a former event manager, you can guess that I am pretty captain organized, with the exception of my inbox, which we've already established. So I wanted to touch on a few things that I love about Goodshuffle that are going to help you stay organized, things that you should consider as you are using this time to create scalable solutions moving forward. So you've got all your information centralized and in one place. And the first thing is files per project. So 2 things to touch on here is, one, really easy to drag and drop to store photos of, a bride's inspiration, or maybe how you kind of jerry-rigged a set piece in a particular hotel. What's awesome is when you're doing an event at that same venue, Goodshuffle is actually going to suggest that as a file. So you know right away, oh yeah, that's how we solved that problem 6 months ago. So definitely centralizing all of that information is awesome. And also files per inventory. So there are things that you undoubtedly lose track of because maybe you hang on to everything. And so when it comes time to find a warranty slip or a receipt, you can't get your hands on it, or you're kind of like me and you don't hang on to anything, kind of assuming you'll always have access to it, or I probably won't need this. Enter the files on inventory where this happy medium occurs. I can store everything from like copies of receipts and warranties on particular inventory items, setup instructions, right? Think of something as simple as like a donut wall, which I, as an event person, I get and know how that should be set up. But my crew that's showing up, they may not know or be familiar with how that works. So I could definitely store that diagram on the inventory item, and then my team always has access to those particular documents and pieces of information.
Yeah, Mallory, with that example, one thing that stands out is that that's a great example too of something we talk to, really smaller business owners say, why would I do that? I do everything, or it's always me and my spouse or my sister-in-law. And, the really small businesses sort of say that, but then a lot of businesses have told us, oh my gosh, we grew so quickly. It was just one season where we started getting so many inquiries, we didn't even know what to do with ourselves, which of course, great problem to have. But then you can really end up in a pickle if you don't have things like those instructions, because you have a really busy weekend. Again, good problem to have. You hire some, college kid in your town who happens to be around, who's, savvy, but doesn't know how to set up a donut wall. And then they set it up wrong, and then you have an unhappy client on your hands. And so you get into that reputation issue. So I think instructions are a great one to just say, it might not feel like you need it now, but you never know.
Yeah. And when you're, getting that inventory item in and putting it into Goodshuffle, right? That's just a quick drag and drop in the moment that you're doing it. I read an article this week on, how to maximize the minutes in your day. And basically the rule of thumb is, if it takes you 30 seconds, if it takes you a minute to do now, do it now, because it's going to take you 2 or 3 times as long down the road. And so if you're doing that as you're entering your inventory, or setting aside, 20 or 30 minutes right now to add in some of that information, that's not something you're interrupting yourself with in the middle of a busy weekend when you're trying to get 14 orders out the door and you've got a to-do list a mile long and some guy's asking you how to set up a donut wall, or how do I need to put the stakes in the ground for my tents, you are able to just say, hey, that document exists, just click into the inventory item. If you can't figure it out, let's talk, but everything you need is there.
These are also some of my favorite chores because you can do them in front of the television. You can have some, like, whatever the newest Netflix thing is streaming as you're just digging up old files and dragging and dropping them into your inventory for next year. I mean, it's a great way to be like, man, look at me getting ahead for next year. But also, what's new with Carrie and Big? I'm rewatching Sex and the City. I've been given time.
The other thing I wanted to touch on is customizable columns. Now, customizable columns is Goodshuffle Pro's answer to custom reports, and it's really easy to create drag and drop reports on the fly. I'm actually going to share my screen, Karen, if you don't mind, and walk through a couple of examples here. So I've set up my project page, and for those of you who haven't seen the inside of Goodshuffle, this is where all of your events will live. You can see that we're color coding everything by which stage your events are in. So we're very clearly articulating that sales cycle. So it's super obvious for you to access information. So something I might want to take a look at is, okay, of my new events, like what came in over the weekend, right? I can easily go in here and sort by the date that it was created and boom, 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 hit those as soon as I'm coming in to the office and following up with folks. My other option is going into my quotes. Who has an event on the horizon that hasn't gotten their quote moving, right? I might sort and filter this by saying, let's take a look at the next 30 days and perhaps sort this by my event start date. And I instantaneously see, okay, when is the last time that I sent the client a follow-up message? And when did the client open that message? In fact, I did not know that Goodshuffle Pro was tracking my emails when I was on the receiving ends of quotes and contracts. And so it's not meant to be like a sneaky gotcha moment. It's meant to help give some insight to know, okay, I sent an email to Mallory yesterday confirming some changes. Has she read it, right? Is she like going in and getting the information that I need? On the quote side, am I giving that VIP bride with the big contract the hand holding that she needs? And then another thing might be scoping it to my signed contracts and just, double checking, like the next 2 weeks coming up, who still owes me money? Are there any conflicts that I still need alerts or still need to resolve, right? I can see those here on my alerts tab, my billing status. Again, all of these columns I can sort and filter. So I'm bringing the information I need most and snapping that up to the top of the list so that if this girl who owes me $14, I can call up Olivia and I know that that's a priority call versus, whoops, Goodshuffle Pro has taken care of all of these other payments with the automated payment reminders. Same thing with alerts, right? If I want to snap these up to the top of my list here, my red bells are going to show me, hey, there are still conflicts that exist here, might need to come up with a plan for those. And my yellow bells are showing me these are already conflicts that I have resolved. Any others that are a favorite of yours, Karen, that I didn't touch base on there?
No, I mean, part of what I love though is just how easy it really is to change these columns. I think a lot of people get stuck on the columns that they always have, and then they have this long list of columns, which is fine, but I always try to remind people you can also remove them and add them in a blink. And so it makes it a lot easier rather than having a long list you scroll both ways. I personally would prefer to say, like, all right, I'm working on sales tasks right now. Let me pull those up. And now let me remove them. And I'm going to double check any of the execution stuff for the weekend under fulfillment. You can see we have so many options.
Yeah, exactly. Able to easily just go in and add additional information here as I need to and drag and order that to where I want to fill. The other thing I'll point out, Karen, that I think some folks don't realize either is that each person on your team can have different information. So I, as a salesperson, and I'm going to have a lot more, client facing things. When am I following up with them? Do they owe us money? Whereas, any of my dispatchers or warehouse crew leads, they can fill this with things like what is on the order, when does our truck need to leave, all of that information, so that they can then sort and filter the information that's most important to them as well.
Sure. You can also export these into a CSV. So I talked to one of our clients when I was out for a trade show traveling and got to go and visit their warehouse, and they were kind of teasing their owners. So sorry to the owners here. They were sort of teasing the boss that he really likes to print certain things out with like a certain type of graph that he's been doing for 30 years. And so they will export this and then kind of just build that little graph in Excel because he likes to see it that way. So that is an option too. But I can't think of a whole lot of situations where you need to do that, but it is an option because some people really do prefer seeing things a very specific way or liking that kind of being able to, the malleable, like, oh, I want to change it like this, or I want to show it to my boss like this.
I see that Renee has chatted in and a user in our software and reporting back the same thing. Love how flexible it is and love to see that. Feel free to drop in, any tips and tricks on that front as well. I know everyone's always curious, well, how does somebody do that? So feel free to drop that information in. Any other hand raises from our users who are in the audience of using customizable columns and these different client views, making life a little easier, a little better? See some hands going up there. So that's really, really great to hear.
I think also showing people how you can sort by pull sheet. I think people are surprised that even the visual columns actually sort as well. So it's not just the numeric columns. If you click on the pull sheet, it'll show from the order of the ones that are the most done. So you can click on your things that are coming up this weekend and say, all right, how far are we? What are the ones we still haven't even done the prep work on, or the load work, or however you have that set up. So I think that a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah, this just, when I look at our project page, Karen, even during my demo, I just get such a feeling of zen when I see this, and the aha moment when I'm on a demo with someone and they're like, oh man, all of this information is in one place. I'm not having to go to 15 different reports tabs and click into all of these different places is awesome, right? I mean, those micro moments too really build up, and like those extra steps in your day just kind of chip away at that frustration. So the goal here, of course, as you're wrapping up is to stress less. So creating these moments of zen is just really important.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's a great segue into our goal of stressing less, which I do realize is a tall order these days, obviously. I'm sure a lot of us have felt a lot of different types of stresses. But even more reason we could all use a little sanity right now. And I'm going to kick that off with this notion of a myth. There is a myth that is baked into our everyday language that I'm going to expose, and it's called the paper trail. We talk about a paper trail, particularly my father, who's a lawyer. So I think I had that like growing up as a thing, that you always want a paper trail. And it's kind of an outdated term. The notion that paper is what's going to help you stay organized is dated, and it's problematic. I mean, think about, these are silly looking examples because they're stock images, but I think they actually highlight some of the problems. You can put a coffee down on a piece of paper and it's ruined. You can have wind blow away a post-it note. You can crumple up paper. And the minute, of course, the most important part is the minute you change your mind, or the minute a client changes their mind, or something changes, that piece of paper is now spreading false information. I'm sure people have the experience of a pull sheet in the warehouse that didn't get updated because it was a piece of paper and they changed something digitally, and it's not like Harry Potter magic paper that like, ta-da, changes. It doesn't change. It's a piece of paper. So what I'm saying is really the biggest thing that a business can do to stress less is moving as much as humanly possible to digital. And I know it sounds like I'm biased because I work for a technology company, but let's talk about the things that this actually does for you and your business. One is it ends finger pointing. We did a in-person user training back in February, and one of our users came up to me, and I just loved the story. He said, oh, well, I just don't even have arguments anymore with anyone on my team. If anyone on my staff says anything of like, well, this happened or this happened, all I say is, was it in Goodshuffle? Okay, and I walk away. And, he unfortunately even let someone go because they were putting things in Goodshuffle. And he said, this has just become our zen, our moment of, less stress, because it's just clear. If somebody marked it as done, then it's done. If somebody marked it as changed, then it's changed. And if you didn't, then you're getting in trouble, because that's the main thing you have to do as an employee to sort of prove your ground. So he's talked about babysitting less, which I'm sure anyone who's a manager and a boss out there can, has had those moments and can relate. I also love that, to Mallory's point, the last people you want to get in arguments with outside of your staff is your clients. Not a great look to be arguing with someone who you're trying to pitch on their big day, or, whatever it may be. And so it's really a lot easier to tell a client that, you did receive this quote and, it was read at this time, or, the activity log shows down to the second, the last time they signed off on the change. So the example she gave of someone she knows who was delivering chairs, the fact that he could just calmly say to a client, hey, you can see here that you signed off on Sunday, the 28th at 2:05 and 29 seconds PM. Then it just, he quickly said, what can we do to help? And then they loved him and he was the hero, but there was no chance then of her kind of saying, well, they messed it up. And then speaking of those changes, you will hate them less when making a change no longer means running frantically to the warehouse and burning all old pull sheets. It's no longer this headache of, did I copy and paste it into my accounting software because we have a QuickBooks integration? Did I tell my employees, when your employees can clearly see the exact same information and the exact same project? It's all there. It's all in one place. There's no questioning about it. So one of the things I like to think of it as is, what's something that would make you stress less in your personal life? What's something that would make you stress less in business? If I were to tell you you could hire a personal secretary, would you think that would help stress less? I would think, want to raise your hand and back me up here. I think most people would say yes. And I will note that it would be very illegal to hire a personal secretary for only $79 a month, but that is what Goodshuffle Pro starts at. And you are getting that. You are getting a person who is making sure you don't forget to follow up with your prospect, making sure that your client is aware of all of their changes, making sure that your team is aware that there's a sub-rental on an order. All the things that I think keep us up at night. Although when I mentioned insomnia before, I didn't get a lot of hand raises, and now I'm feeling a little alone in this struggle. But I can tell you, my team hears all the time the things that wake me up in the middle of the night for Goodshuffle. I'm sure most business owners feel the same way, that like, oh my gosh, did I remember to do this? Oh my gosh, did I remember to follow up with her? That's removed. When, if you really want, you can even in the moment reach over to your bedside stand, because I know we're all still using cell phones on our bedside stand, even that's bad for us with the blue light. And you can open it and say like, oh yeah, I did reach out to her, or no, I didn't. I'm gonna set a task for tomorrow, and then I don't forget. And that's all taken care of, and that relieves that stress. It relieves that constant worry. So now what is always the question on these webinars. You get ideas of things to do, but there's also stress in your personal life, and there's not enough hours in the day. So I'm going to just give some suggestions of actionable next steps. If you are not currently a Goodshuffle Pro user, we would love to, of course, set up a demo and see if we'd be a great fit for your business. And if you are, did you know we offer free account audits? Meaning we will sit and just look at your account with you and tell you, hey, it doesn't look like you've set things up like attributes and they can help you in this way. Or are you aware of a feature that we launched earlier this year you might not know about? And we can offer that completely free. So making sure that you're maximizing the software that you already have, taking that inventory. This is that chore that is like totally core to your business. Your inventory is very essential. If no matter which part of the industry you're in, it's a core part of it, and it cannot be the last thing on your mind. So let's all avoid squatters in our warehouse. Make sure you are showcasing things in packages. Again, those photo edit things. Now those tools are really simple. I don't know anything about Photoshop. I promise. That is a very elementary level tool that I use to do that. It pains me putting website third because, as you can probably tell, I'm very passionate about websites. But of course, getting your core of the business software and the inventory first, but then there's website. I do feel like we have so many resources now. We actually have a new website resource hub. So I'll be sending that out as well. That has tips and webinars and really easy stuff. You can throw on one of our old webinars while you're eating your lunch, and just make sure that you're trying to make some of those incremental changes. You don't have to change everything overnight. You don't have to have the world's best website to make changes that will 100% immediately see the ROI because of those leads that come in. And then if you don't really want to do stuff yourself on the website, even though I think we make it all pretty user-friendly, just so you know, whether you're a Goodshuffle Pro user or not, we do have a preferred partners page And those are all folks who know how to handle our integration, if that's what you're doing. And even if you're not, just like go on over, let them know that we sent you. One of the reasons we picked them is they're all talented, but they're also all very reasonably priced. So they have some variation in their pricing, but I've heard from so many of our users that a frustration in getting someone to do their website is some of them have been burned before with someone who online says, oh, I'm a great web developer. Well, they took like one class in school or something and they didn't know what they were doing, or they're great, but they charge absolute absurd amounts. And when they tell me how much they paid for a website and they see me gawk, there's this moment of, oh my gosh, how did I not know? But there's just such a range. And so it's always good to get a recommendation. And we have 6 now partners who we vetted and we'll be happy to recommend. And then processes. I cannot stand when I talk to folks and they say something like, oh, my team will never do that. If you create processes that are simple, I mean, we're not talking about doing ridiculous 45-step things to start your day when they come into the office, but if you create some simple processes and you hire good people, which if the problem is the people, then that's the problem. You really can make it the norm. Just because something hasn't been that way historically, I mean, this is about goal setting. That's what this whole webinar is about, is to be setting goals for 2021. And for us all to say, well, people have never done it this way. It's not the way to scale. We have to break ourselves of bad habits, break our employees of those bad habits, and say, look, if you get on site and you rigged this a different way, in a wild way, so that you could work at this venue, you have to take a picture on your cell phone and drop it into the project and tag the venue. And that's really easy to do. It's not asking too much. It takes 2 seconds and it will save you the next time you go there. I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised when you just lay out some basic processes and kind of cheerlead your team to do them, that it doesn't take that long for people to kind of adopt the new way and let go of some of the bad habits that they may have been breezing through before. Right? Am I right? My queen of organization, Mallory's enthusiastically smiling.
Oh my gosh. Processes make my heart sing. I think sometimes Karen's like, are you sure we need a process for it? And it's like, yes, that's how we're going to grow the company, right? Is laying that really good foundation. So if you haven't started with Goodshuffle and you want to talk through processes, even if you don't, I'll still talk to you, but we'll definitely touch base on our demos. So I would love it to have those conversations with anyone looking to make that switch. You can email me, Mallory@goodshuffle.com, or if you go to our website and fill out our demo request form there as well.
Great. Well, are there any other questions and folks who wanted to ask a question about their goals that we didn't cover? Any Goodshuffle Pro users who want to just sneak in a random question? Go for it. You've got us here for another couple minutes. Otherwise, we will be sending out the recording. We will also send out some of the links. I know some folks have asked for the links to some of the other resources I mentioned in terms of ways to better your website. Obviously, that's tons of topics to cover there. So we'll send those out as well. And also, we are going to be looking to do some webinars in the new year. Some people who are really excited to kind of buckle down. I know some people are doing it now, wanting to get ahead of the new year. I know some folks have said that they're a little bit busier over the holiday season, but they're ready to roar at it, January 2nd. And so we are putting together some stuff we're going to go over in Q1. And if you have any thoughts or things you'd love to learn more about, feel free to give me a note. Just carrying a Goodshuffle.
Before we close out, I'm going to take a page out of our teammate Colin's playbook and ask the audience, what is your biggest takeaway today? What is the thing that jumped out to you, whether you're an existing user, whether you're a new user? That helps us, get some really good feedback as well, and would love to hear from you kind of what has resonated with you. And, if you're walking away with one thing that you're doing later today, other than signing up for a demo, if you're not a new user or signing up to meet with Karen, what is something that you plan to implement headed into 2021? Drop those into the chat or email us directly if you want to. Would love to hear that.
We're getting some good compliments. Thanks, guys. People are saying that that the software is great and your systems are everything. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And a takeaway website wish list. Yep. Instant gratification. People want that instant gratification. It doesn't mean that they're going to be done when they're done shopping. The person who said that Joe is intense, and so I'm sure he has the moments where he has to explain why a tent stake won't work on concrete. So, you'll have those moments still, but at least make them feel like they've gone ahead and put their order in. They get that instant response, and you can always come back on the other end of that.
I love, Renee was talking about working on DIY and getting the website wish list up and running. I mean, I can't hit home the flexibility of that wish list enough. I mean, whether you want to cater to a DIY bride who's going to put, pick and choose particular items, or showcase the similar items in a package format. So flexible. Anyone that wants to see a few client sites or talk about ways to customize that, definitely reach out to Karen, because we've got some really good examples to show on that front as well.
And another thing is, I talked to someone the other day. First of all, you can absolutely do it yourself. We've got partners just because a lot of folks feel like, I'd like some help getting things done, but you can do it yourself. But the other thing is you can tackle, just like how you can tackle Goodshuffle Pro in that approach of really easy to do the basics. Okay, now I want to learn more about the features I might not know and kind of grow. Same thing with the wish list. We have folks who turn it on and immediately their inventory is live, and then they just leave it as kind of like a full catalog. And then a couple months later, they'll come back and say, okay, I kind of want to have a holiday theme page with someone I was talking to the other day. Can you remind me where I go to figure out how to just put one page that's just the holiday stuff? Yeah, absolutely. And then I said, and then you can start adding in next year the things you want to feature, micro weddings or holidays or anything like that. You don't have to do everything on day one. You can set it live and then later over time, tweak it, adjust it, build it, make it better.
We even have, Karen, I don't know if you've seen this on one of the websites, we have a couple clients who will preemptively put items that they're thinking about purchasing on the wish list, right? You don't have to show the quantity of items you have to the client. And so if you've got some like pieces that you're thinking about making an investment in, but you're not sure, like, is this going to resonate with the clients? We've got several folks who will just put the disclaimer up, hey, this item is not available until, March 1st. But that way they're going to see, hey, is this something that vibes with my clientele, something that they're willing to pay for? And I know we've helped them avoid some big purchasing mistakes by like, the planner thought, I thought everyone was going to love the brown couch, but they really loved the black one instead. And so really relying on your customers to help drive some of those business decisions too.
Yeah. And I've got someone asking about reaching out and hearing from other Goodshuffle users. It's very funny that you say that, Renee, because just this morning we were having a meeting and talking about doing some roundtables. Mallory was making some suggestions about some virtual roundtables that we can do. So definitely we'll be following up with you as we form those. We really wanted to do an in-person user day like we did last February, and things aren't looking as great for that in the DC area, but we are hoping to still get users together and do some more of these trainings so that folks can exchange some ideas and brainstorm. We think the power of a community is huge.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks, Mallory. I appreciate your time.
Today was so fun, Karen. I'm so glad we got together. Thanks to everyone for carving out the time to show up. Obviously, this wouldn't have been a whole lot of fun talking to a blank room.
Talking to me wouldn't be fun?
I mean, maybe we would talk about Sex and the City episodes instead of inventory, but
I really am curious if anyone wants to confess later whether that reference landed or not. I have a feeling no one picked up what I was putting down. It's now a pretty old show, I guess.
Yeah. It's looking back at some of the episodes. I mean, there's still the ratio of some of the early episodes isn't even widescreen. So pretty crazy.
Oh boy. Well, thanks again to everyone for your time. Again, never hesitate to reach out. We're here. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks again.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.